It happened again. I had another attack from the small bowel obstruction fairy. 10 years ago, I had an emergency surgery performed on my innards to remove a couple of different tumors I had. Due to that, I will forever now live with this thing called small bowel obstruction. I had no help from the traditional medical system at the time. Like, unfortunately, so many other times, I had to do the research on my own to figure out what the problem was. And more so than anything, how to have some kind of a solution that's not in pill form. They were willing to give me anti-vomiting medicine. All the anti-vomiting medicine did was it prolonged the pain. It felt better for a while. I didn't throw up as quickly, but eventually I still had to because it had to go somewhere. The most frustrating part of all is that it typically lasts up to 12 hours, as in 12 hours of vomiting, basically a few times per hour. Graciously, my wife is there with the throw up bowl to help me out through it all, but holy shit, it is exhausting. Small bowel obstruction does not, at least in my case, it will not go away. Due to the surgery I had, they had to chop off multiple pieces of my small intestines, so it creates multiple opportunities for things to get stuck around the scar tissue. I have a lot of restrictions on what I can and cannot eat. I'm just gonna break this down to a few simple things that might be able to help you out. They're things that I pay close attention to that has drastically cut down the number of attacks I've had. So the first thing that helped me out early on was to start blending everything, aka vegetables. I eat fruit. I've never had any problem eating fruit as it is. I love blueberries, strawberries, grapes, apples, carrots, or didn't you know? A carrot is a fruit now. I just declared it so. Oranges, bananas, kiwi. There's a lot of lovely fruit out there. I personally don't have any issues at all if I just eat those raw. However, vegetables are a completely different scenario. I cannot personally eat pretty much any vegetable at all, actually, anymore. So I literally cannot eat a salad. I cannot chew spinach, carrots, zucchini, unless I cook it thoroughly. And when I say thoroughly, I mean like I have to steam that shit until there is nothing left. So it basically takes the nutrition out of it. It also takes the fun out of it. I mean, who loves really squishy carrots? Maybe somebody does. Maybe you do. I personally do not. Can't stand it. So I just blend everything in a green smoothie every day of my life. The second thing I do to help me with small bowel obstruction is to break up my meals and eat them. I typically eat them in roughly an 8-hour window of time, but I just space them out every couple of hours. So I have usually 4 to 5 meals spaced out. I cannot do a huge meal all at once. So spacing it out works better. You might need 10 hours, maybe 12 hours. But for me personally, I cannot just sit down and have a massive Thanksgiving style meal ever. It will not end well. With that said, when I'm on vacation and there's, free breakfast at the hotel, it turns out I can gorge myself pretty well on that food, but that food is highly processed. Just those two things, blending my veggies and eating small meals throughout the day, pretty much takes care of most of the issues I was dealing with before that. Now going back through and editing this video, I realized I missed a couple of things that I'd like to point out. First off, chewing my food very slowly. It's boring, it's a little tedious, it takes time to practice, but it really does help. Just taking a bite, chewing it lots and lots and lots of times before you move on to the next bite. You want to make it as easy for your digestive tract to handle it as possible. One other thing I forgot to mention is consuming seeds very cautiously. I don't run into issues with really tiny seeds that come from fruit typically, but if you're talking medium-sized seeds, those honestly are the ones that get me the most. You might find kind of a medium-sized seed in a bread or a trail mix. Those are the most pernicious in my experience because they're not that noticeable, but they're large enough to get clogged up in the intestinal tract. If they're much larger seeds, it's very easy to be cognizant of those. I personally try and avoid medium-sized seeds, especially those in muesli, a trail mix, or a bread whenever possible. There is a seed that I love, which is chia seeds. I blend those in a blender every day. That is the only way that I eat them. I found if I just mix them into my oatmeal, that tends to be a problem. It gets really thick, and I have had some attacks come out of using chia seeds with my oatmeal and mixing those together, unfortunately. But when I use them in a really high quality blender, I have gone through many over the past decade, and I have found, for me, right now, the one I'm using, I'm absolutely loving. I do have a link for it down in the description if you're interested. If not, totally fine. Out of everything that I've tried thus far, it's hands down my favorite. A great blender really does help. I have found it to simply be a worthwhile investment for my daily green smoothie that I make. Now back to the regularly scheduled video. Sometimes I still have an attack, and that's where the next few tips come in. First, I start to pace. And that is the number one thing I have found works once the attack has begun. I just pace back and forth in my living room or in a hallway. It's boring as hell, but it works. I start with my pacing and then I massage my stomach. And I'll just show you here. I take both hands and I just kind of rub downward. It's very sensual, isn't it? This is me being me, okay? I just have to throw that in there. So yeah, I just rub it down and then I come and then I stop and then I rub down. I do not rub my belly upward. I just rub it downward only. So down and then hands off and then come back to the top, kind of at the bottom of my rib cage roughly. And then I go down and then I just keep repeating that as I pace. What happens is I start to belch a lot and I fart a lot. That's just what happens. It starts moving everything through. So I do tons of belching. I have tons of flatulence and things start to move along and get going. And it does slowly start to improve my symptoms and they start to calm down more. It goes in waves. It's just very much like an ocean wave, and it comes in strong and then it kind of calms down and then it comes in strong and calms down. That's the typical rhythm it takes on. And usually within 1 to 2 hours, it's subsided and goes away. In some cases, especially when it's food that irritated my stomach more than a big meal, because every now and then I like to try new foods and sometimes that gets me in trouble. And if that's the case, there is a third thing that I do, and that is to drink some digestive tea. I'm going to leave links in the description for the ones that I use. If you're interested in checking one of those teas out, you can use my link in the description below. It is an affiliate link. It helps to support my channel and there's no extra cost to you. Go ahead and feel free to share your experiences down below. I'd love to hear about them. I wish you all the best in your small bowel obstruction adventures. Feel free to share this video with others if you found it helpful or you think it would be helpful for someone else you know. Take care.